this morning, I'm going to be reading from Matthew 28, verses 1 through 10. And this comes from the Common English Bible translation. After the Sabbath at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to look at the tomb. Look, there was a great earthquake, for an angel from the Lord came down from heaven. Coming to the stone, he rolled it away and sat on it. Now his face was like lightning, and his clothes as white as snow. The guards were terrified, and they shook with fear and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Don't be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He isn't here because he's been raised from the dead, just as he said. Come, see the place where they laid him. Now hurry, go and tell the disciples, he's been raised from the dead. He's going on ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there. I've given the message to you." With great fear and excitement, the women hurried away from the tomb and ran to tell his disciples. But Jesus met them and greeted them. They came and grabbed his feet and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to him, "Don't be afraid. Go and tell my brothers that I am going to Galilee. They will see me there." The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. The women fell to their feet, fell to their knees, grabbed Jesus' feet, and worshipped him. Now, those of you who attend worship regularly here, you know that I have not been a pastor for very long. I'm actually in my third year, not only here at Faith United Methodist Church, but I'm also in my third year as a pastor. And even though I'm what you might call a newbie, I've already had some of the same experiences that a few of my more seasoned colleagues have also had. For example, last month on Ash Wednesday, I was sitting in a nearby Starbucks, and I had my clerical collar on and I had my ashes sitting on the table, and I was waiting for folks who might want to receive ashes because they could not go to their own worship sites. Well, every now and then people would look at me a little sideways. I guess it's not every day you see a woman wearing a clerical collar, right? Either that or I was having an exceptionally good hair day. But when I would make eye contact with the people, I asked them if they wanted to receive ashes, because after all, it was Ash Wednesday. Well, as I was sitting there, a man asked if he could sit down and chat with me, and I said, of course. And so we sat down and we talked for about 30 minutes. And as he was getting ready to leave, I said to him, "You know, I'm the pastor over here at Faith United Methodist Church on 19th Avenue. We'd love to have you join us for worship at 9:30 on Sunday mornings." And do you know how he replied? He said, "Oh, I believe in God, I really do. But I don't believe you have to go to church in order to worship God." You've heard people say that, haven't you? Yeah. I actually hear it all the time. And to be fair, in theory, they're right. You don't have to go to church in order to worship God. You don't have to be in a sanctuary or even on church grounds in order to be in the presence of God. Because God is all around us all the time, whether we go to church or not. And in fact, one of the places where I love to worship God is not really a church at all. It's up on the mountain, up on Mingus Mountain, the United Methodist Church camp up there. They have a beautiful outdoor chapel. And it's one of the places where I feel God's presence. In fact, it's the place where God spoke to me and gave me my call to become a pastor. So when someone says that they don't have to go to church, that people don't have to go to church in order to worship God, I tell them they're right. But I also tell them that that only works if you are going someplace else on the Sabbath with the intent of truly worshiping God. Russell Brownworth, a pastor, a United Methodist pastor in North Carolina, said it another way. He said, "I've been a pastor for a long time, and I've encouraged a multitude of folks to get regular about going to worship. But I've also been told a similar multitude of times, 'Preacher, you don't have to go to church to worship.' And I say to them, if you believe that, then you really need to say the whole sentence, which is, you don't have to go to church to worship, but if you don't, you probably won't." You see, Reverend Brownworth was an avid golfer, and from time to time he would come across people on the golf course claiming that that was where they worshiped God, that they worshiped God on the golf course. And to them he would reply, "Yes, well, golf is one of my favorite hobbies, but I cannot recall the last time I prayed the Lord's Prayer before the first tee. I may have prayed for a good shot, especially so I won't be embarrassed in front of those who are better golfers than I am. But that's not worship. I've never sung a hymn of praise to Jesus on the golf course," he goes on, "and the only offering I ever gave was what they call greens fees." Greens fees. Yeah. And, friends, those are not used for mission work. So we might say that we can worship without being in church, but let's get real about that. What we usually are saying when we say that, what we usually mean is that I have different, or what I think better, ways of spending my time rather than going to worship. We're saying that going to church to worship God and pay tribute to Jesus is not a priority in our busy lives, and yet when we make time to be in worship, something happens to us. We are reborn. Our spirits are renewed and our souls are fed with the food that only the risen Christ can provide. During worship, we remember Jesus' sacrifice for us, and we honor what he did and what he continues to do for us. Something happens to us during worship. Our hope is renewed, and our spirits are strengthened for the work that God calls us to do. When the women saw the risen Christ, they fell to their knees and they worshiped him. Just a few days before, their lives were in shambles. The man they thought would change the world had been crucified. He died a horrible, horrible death. And as if that wasn't bad enough, his closest friends were in hiding because they were afraid that they were next. But even in their grief, even though they were afraid, the women got up early on Sunday morning and went to the tomb where they encountered the risen Christ. Jesus calmed their fears. He wiped away their grief. Their hope was restored, and they were given a new purpose to go and spread the good news that Jesus Christ is alive. My friends, I believe that we can learn from these women, can't we? Because when we get up on Sunday mornings, no matter how tired we are, or how deep we are in grief or despair, when we go to the place where we will meet and encounter the risen Christ, his presence feeds our souls. His comforting words renew our hope, and our purpose is made new for the days to come. Worship is an important way to pay tribute to Jesus. It's one of the ways we express our gratitude and respect for the things he did and continues to do. And it's one of the ways that we offer thanks to him for his life, his ministry, and especially his love. Several years ago, a churchgoer wrote a letter to the editor of a newspaper, complaining about having to go to church every Sunday. He wrote, "I've gone for 30 years, and in that time I've heard about 3,000 sermons. But for the life of me, I can't remember a single one. So I think I'm wasting my time. And I think the pastors are wasting their time. What do you think? Well, his letter to the editor sparked a flurry of replies that kept the conversation going for weeks, until finally a response came in that put the others to shame. A man wrote, "I've been married for 30 years now, and in that time my wife has cooked some 32,000 meals. But for the life of me, I can't recall the entire menu for a single one. But I do know this: they all nourished me. They all gave me the strength I needed to do my work. If my wife had not given me those meals, I would be physically dead today. Likewise, if I had not gone to church for nourishment, I would be spiritually dead as well." When we make a commitment to be in worship, we're demonstrating the importance we place on spending time with God and the importance of God's presence and direction in our lives. Because when God is high on our priority list, then our worship expresses a lifestyle of holiness. It demonstrates the extravagant love that flows out of the reality that God loved us first. When we worship in this way, God is present with us. And God responds by transforming our hearts to be more like the heart of God. So as followers of the risen Christ, we are meant to worship every day. We are meant to worship in prayer and in study and by experiencing His presence through meditation. We are meant to pay tribute to the risen Christ by feeling the pain of His sacrifice and reliving the miracle of His resurrection. Because when we pay tribute to the risen Christ, He gives us a new purpose, and He offers us new hope. And when we do as the women did on that first Easter morning, when we get up on Sunday morning and go to the place where we are most likely to meet the risen Christ, and I'll give you a hint, it's not on the golf course. When we bring Him our fears, our confusion, and our grief, and the pressures of this life that overwhelm us each day, when we bring those things and we lay them at the foot of the cross, our souls will be fed, our spirits renewed. Friends, let us thank God for the opportunity to worship the risen Christ. And all of God's resurrection people said, Amen.